Yuji is your average corporate worker who gets worked to his bone and eventually dies from overwork. Soon, he gets reincarnated into another world as a tamer, which is recognized as the weakest class. But he soon befriends some overpowered slimes and decides to do some charity work for free. In a dark forest, Yuji gets ambushed by an ugly monster as he dodges its attacks smoothly. He then summons his slimes to take down the monster, and these Walmart versions of Rimuru destroy the monster with a single strike. With this, Yuji heads to the town and leaves the monster's dead body behind. At the Adventurers Guild, some losers are arguing with a guy whose barber did him dirty as he tells them about some slimes that breathe fire. They keep mocking him until eventually, Yuji enters the guild and approaches the desk. The lady deems Yuji a low-life failure like herself and assumes that he is here to cancel his request. However, much to her surprise, Yuji had already finished the task and is here to deliver the Drya flowers. This shocks the woman because these flowers are insanely rare as she rushes to call her chief. Seeing all these flowers, the chief comments that these would be enough for at least 2 years and decides to buy all of them. As they are conversing, another guy rushes into the guild and informs them that smoke signals have appeared in the forest. Yuji asks him slimes about this and gets informed that about 10,000 monsters are heading towards the town for some reason. Hearing this, the chief pisses himself and instructs the adventurers to leave the town because he knows their presence won't do anything. However, it seems like the adventurers have some dignity as they refuse to leave and want to protect the people. During all this, Yuji proposes that he can recreate dragon's fire using a dragon's bone and obliterate the monsters. All the adventurers refuse to believe him, but the guy who had beef with his barber convinces them and offers to help as well. Following this, all adventurers prepare to intercept the monsters, while Yuji climbs the tower while gathering intel from his allies. Even though the adventurers are scared they still want to help protect the town and its people. Just as the battle begins, Yuji announces that he'll finish this off in 15 minutes using Sage's special skill Magic Maker. Just then, numerous screens appear in front of him, and Yuji somehow processes all this information at once. During all this, Yuji receives intel from the Dryad that they have noticed a shady guy in the forest holding something. Yuji uses the CCTV camera he uses to peek into the girls' changing room to see the guy, and immediately realizes that he's carrying a magic stone. Without thinking further, he decides to destroy the stone using his slimes. He forges a barrier around the stone and dispels the magic stone. Amidst all this, Lily is spying on Yuji because she has nothing better to do. He also captures the shady guy, but he commits suicide. Yuji also notices that the adventurers are having a hard time against these monsters and decides to lend them a hand. He instructs his underlings to help these pathetic excuses for adventurers. Meanwhile, Yuji has forged a plan to take out all these monsters at once and instructs Lily to call back all the adventurers. He also instructs his slimes hiding in the forest to return immediately. As they are heading back, one of the monsters makes its way to the entrance, but gets confronted by the guy who identifies as a pineapple. Seeing that he is struggling against it, another adventurer rushes to help him, and together they manage to kick him out the entrance. With the help of Yuji's wolf, they eventually defeat the monster and head inside. With this, Yuji forges a barrier around the town and unleashes Hellfire of Demise. This spell nukes everything outside the barrier, including the forest, totally adding to global warming. But Yuji couldn't care less about that. The adventurers cannot comprehend how a tamer can unleash such overwhelming magic. Aegis even comments that anyone who uses magic of such caliber is basically committing suicide. This concerns Lily, and she rushes towards Yuji, who is feeling weak because of this spell. He is then informed by his slimes that the monsters are quite persistent, just like my Yandere X. With no other option left, Yuji decides to cast the spell once again as Lily attempts to stop him. Yuji, however, doesn't care about her opinion because she is a woman, and casts the spell nevertheless. This spell obliterates everything in the town surrounding it as Yuji falls to the ground. Yuji wakes up after some day to find his slimes and Lily standing beside him. In the meantime, the Aegis and the other adventurers have discovered the magic circle and the shady guy's dead body. Lily expresses her gratitude to Yuji for saving the town, even though he barely knows them. She then questions the reason behind his actions, but Yuji remains silent like Chad. This makes him remember the days when his work wasn't appreciated by anyone, and he gets happy. Later on, Lily brings some clothes to Yuji, only to find no one in the room. Yuji has escaped the town because he doesn't want to cause a huge scene. The following morning, Lily informs Aegis about this as he deems Yuji a hero who saved the town and disappeared without a trace. He also informs her that the guy behind all this must belong to the cult they have been hearing about. Yuji overhears all this using his slimes and wonders what this cult is. He then reaches the next town alongside his sidekicks. With all of this going on, A wannabe Heihachi instructs his lackey that they are looking for a loner adventurer who has never experienced love his entire life, just like you guys. Upon reaching the town, Yuji and his slimes search for food, as Yuji realizes that they are attracting a lot of attention. After grabbing some food from a local vendor, Yuji heads to the Adventurers Guild, where he approaches the receptionist who underestimates for being a tamer, which makes him wonder if he cannot register here. Just then, the lady notices something and clarifies that he can register here because he has enemy tracking skills, and people like that are rare. Yuji then registers himself and starts looking for some jobs. Suddenly, he gets approached by a guy who introduces himself as Rhodus, a dagger expert. He asks if he is looking to join a party alongside two lolis who introduce themselves as Tina and Lisa. Yuji also introduces himself and reveals that he's a tamer, which shocks Rhodus, and he underestimates him just like the quiet kid in class is. The girls, however, are in favor of recruiting him because he can track enemies and save their lives. They also mention something about Rhodus's notorious past and how his party members always disappear. With no other option, Rhodus has to accept Yuji, and their journey begins. Their task is to locate the Earth Dragon's hideout, and Yuji is tasked with tracking enemies. On their way, Yuji's slimes inform him about some wolves ahead, and he leaves Rhodus to deal with them. It turns out that Rhodus is not as useless as he looks. His slimes wonder why Yuji let that guy take down those wolves when they could have eliminated them for him. Yuji tells them that he wanted to gouge their abilities and continues the journey. At night, they have to camp as Rhodus takes them off the path, because it is better to camp away from the path in smaller groups. As they are eating, Tina comments that Yuji gets along well with his slimes, as he tells her that they are his trusted partners, which makes them insanely happy. They then question him regarding his tracking abilities, but Yuji refuses to answer. Rhodus then announces that they should rest, asking Tina to take the first watch, and he'll replace her after some time. According to him, Tina and Lisa should take the first and last watches, because they need proper sleep for combat. This makes Yuji wonder if Rhodus is actually a good guy. In his sleep, Yuji dreams about the day he got reincarnated into this world after dying by Overwork-kun, who is preparing to take over Truck-kun's job. As soon as he wakes up in this world, he comes across a slime and accidentally forms a contract with it. The slime leads him into the forest, and Yuji blindly trusts him, just like I trusted my manipulative ex. The slime leads him to a mysterious place where he notices numerous books and grabs one randomly. It turns out that Yuji can acquire magic just by reading the book, and it even pumps up his MP and HP. Suddenly, more slimes appear out of nowhere and offer to become his pets. Yuji tames all of them, and the slimes proceed to read the books for him. Since the slimes are his pets, Yuji acquires skills even if they read the books. He eventually acquires the status Sage. The slimes even start talking and cheering for Yuji. In the present, Yuji wakes up from his dream, with the slime informing him that Rhodus has escaped from the camp, and the girls are chasing after him. Proud Wolf is also following Rhodus alongside some slimes, and barely manages to escape Rhodus's dagger, who has figured out that someone is chasing him. Tina and Lisa had their suspicions regarding him when he set the watch schedule because he is not the type to care about others. After dodging some traps, Rhodus eventually reaches his hideout and reports to the wannabe Heihachi. He tells him that he has found two lolis who will fetch a good price, even though they are flat as cutting boards, and another guy who will eventually die on his own. Yuji is listening to all this using his CCTV slimes, and realizes that the rumors about Yuji were true after all. Heihachi, on the other hand, asks Rhodus to make this quick because the blue moon is appearing soon. According to legends, the blue moon brings calamity, and they should be wary of that. Hearing this, his servant mocks him, which infuriates Heihachi, and he chokes him like his daddy. Meanwhile, Tina and Lisa wonder what they should do, and conclude that they should act hastily. They decide to head back, but being women, they accidentally stumble upon the traps, which informs Rhodus of their presence. Rhodus immediately heads outside to capture them, but notices a massive monster, which is actually Proud Wolf and the gang. Heihachi comments that he has never seen something like this and decides not to engage the monster. In the meantime, Yuji looks up some spells to get rid of these goons and picks out the weakest one. He transfers the spell Ranged Frost Medium to his slime and casts it upon their hideout. It turns out that the spell was way too overpowered as it freezes the entire hideout. The slimes bring out Heihachi to capture him, which shocks Tina and Lily. Upon seeing Heihachi, they immediately recognize him as Galios, the infamous bandit famous around these areas. Both of them are quite shocked after witnessing Yuji's strength and question him about him. Being an introvert, Yuji doesn't like people meddling in his business, and refuses to answer them. With no other option left, they continue their journey, but get some rest before. Yuji has decided to trust them and scavenges the perfect location for their camp. He even sets the camp using his slimes, which shocks Tina and Lily because they aren't used to such princess treatment. Later on, Yuji remembers Heihachi mentioned a certain organization named the Blue Moon of Salvation and concludes that they must be behind the attack on Fastan. With all of this going on, an old guy is staring at the moon. Watch this next video!